Hey, what is up, my fearless networking friend, Todd Falcone? This is a really, really important subject to cover. I know I've covered it at some point in the past, but this is a game changer for you in your business. When you change this one simple thing in your network marketing or direct selling business, it literally changes everything. And I want to make sure you get it and that I'll give you a little perspective on it so I make my point as crystal clear as possible. But I am dead serious when I say this will change everything in your business, and that means moving it upward. So when I'm talking about change, I'm talking about positive change, positive growth, upward movement, and more earnings in your network marketing or direct selling business. So here's the dealio, okay? And this is the one thing, and then I'm going to explain the one thing so that, again, the point is really, really clear. When you decide that you are going to act in your business as if your very existence on this planet depended on it, your very life depended on it, that's when things change for you, okay? So what's interesting to me, and this is absolute fact, I've done this on stages with thousands of people in the audience, most people are not treating their business as if their very existence depended on it. So I'll give you like a way of looking at it, and I'll tell you a true story from one of the events where I did this. So I'm in the middle of the audience. I'm in 2 hours presentation that I'm doing. I'm walking through, there's like 3,000 people in the room, and they're all there for a national conference. And I'm like, hey, let me ask you guys a question. How many of you in this room want to make enough money in this business where, you didn't have to have a job, a second job, or borrow money? It was like, in other words, you were overflowing. It provides you everything and then some from a financial standpoint. And it's like everybody's hands in the room, like literally 100% of the hands in the room go up. I'm like, so in other words, they all want it. That's what they want. I'm like, cool. Well, let me ask you this question. Be honest when you answer this question. How many of you are acting right now and up until this point have been acting as if your life depended on it? And I would say maybe 3% of the hands in the room go up. So like 100% of the hands in the room went up when I asked the first question. And then I'm looking around the room, and it was like literally 3% in the 3% of the hands in the room go up. So they all want their life to depend on it, but they're not acting as if their life depends on it. So I gave this made-up scenario at the time. I'm like, hey, what happens if you go home? And this is where I can make my point even more crystal clear. You go home, you go back to your job, which obviously at this point for most of you based on the response is really the one that's feeding your family and putting a roof over your head. And you go try to go back to work on Monday and you're fired. All your stuff is in a box. And they're like, hey, we don't need you anymore. You're gone. Here's your walk-in papers. And then you're like, oh man, I gotta go find it. I gotta find another job. And you're not trying to find jobs, and there's no jobs to be had. Like, you're trying to find work. Nobody will hire you. Nobody will hire you. And your friends aren't loaning you money. The bank's not loaning you money. And you're like, okay. But then you've got this business that you're already involved in. This one that you're not treating it as if your life depends on it, but you want your life to depend on it based on the response. Like, what if that became your only option? Like, you had to make it work in order for you to feed your kids, keep a roof over your head, pay your rent, pay your bills, whatever you got. Like, this was the only thing. This is the only thing that was in existence for you to earn a living and take care of your family. What would you do? Like, if that was literally the case, that's where I want to make my point really clear here. If that was literally the case, what would you do? And I mean, be honest, you would do whatever the hell you had to do. Fear wouldn't be irrelevant because hunger would supersede fear. Your hunger to eat would supersede fear. Your hunger to stay in a house versus being on the streets would supersede your fears, your trepidations, your hesitations. So my question to you that are not treating it as if your life depends on it, why aren't you? If you're in a position, you're like, yeah, Todd, I agree with that thing. I want my life to depend on it, but then you're not acting as if your life depends on it. Why aren't you already? That's a conversation that I want you to have with yourself. That's a very, like, if you really let that sink in deep, because if I give you that example, like, wait a second, that's pretty real. Here I am wanting my business, wanting my life to depend on it, but then I'm just kind of treating it as a hobby. I'm not really treating it seriously. And just let me also make this very clear. That doesn't mean that you have to go full-time, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. It just means you have to treat it with a high degree of deadly seriousness, the same kind of deadly seriousness that would exist in your life if you were actually faced with that real situation. The problem is that you're not. But couldn't you somehow make that up in your mind and create that environment where that's the way that you're feeling, like I've got to do everything in my power to make this work? There's no exception. Like if you had, like, we started at the beginning of the day and you're not eating today unless you made a sale or you recruited somebody, you would do whatever you had to do. I guarantee you'd recruit somebody by the end of the day. You'd sell some product by the end of the day. You would do whatever you had to do to move that product to feed your child by the end of the day. Problem is, most people aren't in that situation. But again, why couldn't you mentally put yourself in that position? So the one thing that will literally change everything for you is the moment you decide to treat this business as if your life depends on it, because then and only then will it be able to. That's my message. I'm done. If you're on my YouTube channel, love you. If you're on my podcast, appreciate you guys as well. Thank you so much. The rest of the details on this episode, other things to help you build your business, right here, toddfalcone.com/episode 219. That's TODDFALCONE.com/episode 219. See you next time.